Pyro is finally officially on the horizon. In Star Citizen's most recent roadmap roundup, the developers revealed that Alpha 4.0 is just around the corner, with planned changes even dwarfing the recent ones in Alpha 3.23. It brings in an entirely new star system, Pyro, changes to large ship components and management through the new engineering gameplay, life support, ship fires, and most importantly, a change that overhauls the entire server infrastructure behind the game, server meshing. Not to mention, with the RSI Zeus Mark II variant also being added to the roadmap release view, we're in for a treat in Q3 of this year for Alpha's 4.0 planned release, probably sometime around or after CitizenCon. So let's dive in not only to the new features and content, but also how much this patch is going to affect the game as we know it. If by the end you felt you enjoyed the cinematic shots, technical talk, and deep dive into what's coming in 4.0 and how it will change the game, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button to show your support. Just as I hope that you won't forget about the generous sponsor of today's video, NordVPN, who go a step further with their threat protection service. It works against intrusive ads, malware, trackers, and malicious websites. NordVPN has become a mainstay of my channel's sponsors because I've trusted them now for years after getting sick of free VPNs that didn't work for me. Now I can access the IP-restricted websites that I need to while I'm working from abroad, which is handy for tax season, all while protecting my personal information. I also use the app on my iPad to routinely watch shows like Strange New World Season 2, which is frustratingly not available here in Taiwan. So if you're in the market for a reliable VPN service and you want to support me in another way, you can head on over to nordvpn.com/morphologist to get a huge discount on their 2-year plan, plus get an additional 4 months for free. That's nordvpn.com/morphologist, and if it doesn't work for you, you can always get your money back with their 30-day money-back guarantee. Just as the replication layer arrived in 3.23, Star Citizen Alpha 4.0 brings the next stage of the planned backend systems overhaul called server meshing. The end goal of server meshing is to increase performance for players by distributing the process load within star systems. To developers, this means adding the capability to dynamically allocate server resources where they're most needed within a given location. The iteration that's planned to be delivered in Q3 is a median step towards that goal. They call it static server meshing. This change allows star systems to be managed by more than one server. Each server within a star system will govern a certain geographical portion, essentially splitting the load of the game over these invisible world borders. There is a major downside to this first iteration though, and that's the fact that it's static. Static meaning fixed, where the borders are only governing a fixed area of space. This carries with it the possibility that players could migrate to one region of the entire meshed environment, which is what they're calling a shard, causing that one server to become overloaded and crash. So what we're likely going to see then with this first iteration is not a drastic increase in server player cap, but a small one that they step up over time as they increase a single server's performance capabilities to handle more and more players, as a single server is initially going to be the limiting factor for the total player population in a given shard. But it's not just a player cap and performance increase that we're expected to get with this. What it also brings along with it is a new star system. Server meshing is going to enable us to finally have more than a single location to visit in the entire network of systems that have been planned for Star Citizen, starting with Pyro. Pyro is going to introduce the ability for us to use jump points, which is a naturally occurring gateway and lore between star systems that they've mapped out. And that means with the release of 4.0, we're going to get a plethora of new planets and moons for players to explore. Back in October of last year, some backers even got to experience a limited Pyro playtest, including Pyro 1, 2, and 3, along with our first look at colonialism outposts and new derelict stations. I actually got to try it out myself, both at CitizenCon as well as during the limited playtest, and it was fantastic. I do have some footage on my channel if you guys are interested, but there's also some here playing for you now. This year though, we'll be getting a bit more than what we first saw, with 6 planets and 6 moons and a ton of other stations we never got to explore. Locations that are way bigger than we've ever seen for any space location in the past in Star Citizen. I'm particularly looking forward to checking those out, along with whatever we can find scattered about these new moons and planets, which promise a bunch of new unmarked colonial outposts for us to locate. There's been a lot of talk in the community as we ramp up to finally getting bigger ships in the game about what kind of balance these ships should have versus other vessels of smaller and larger size. But a big piece has always been missing from the player experience up until this upcoming patch, and even now in 3.23 where it started to go into testing, I'm talking, of course, about the engineering gameplay that they've been talking about for years. This new gameplay loop involves players roaming about large ships in order to maintain and manage the core systems on board. In this new version of the game, every ship in the game is going to have its own power network with nodes that can be targeted and disabled, or can just be disabled from overcharging or overusing them in the course of combat or just regular activity. And these systems going down will severely affect the performance of the ship, going to the point where it could even cripple it, making it inoperable until it's mended. But the idea here isn't to make a ship needlessly complex in order to operate. Instead, the goal here is to make large ships more of an activity for players to participate in, and to draw fights out a bit longer than they are right now, where ships don't just suddenly explode. Instead, what you have is an opportunity to strategically control the damage aboard your ship, repair or replace components and fuses to keep it in the fight for longer, and to make it a much more engaging and visceral experience. Something more akin to what we have today with naval warfare. Complementing this, the new fire propagation system and accompanying life support systems will bring a new type of hazard and strategy to ship management. When a fire inevitably breaks out during the course of a space battle, engineers can now choose to vent the atmosphere of rooms into space, removing the oxygen and putting the fire out. Alternatively, crew could choose to put out these fires with handheld fire extinguisher devices so that they could stop the spread from getting too out of control. Speaking of fighting, FPS battles in ships will become a bit more in-depth as well. Players will be able to use remote door locking features and atmospheric venting to stop would-be boarders. This opens up a whole new can of worms for play and counterplay for defenders and boarders to strategize and plan for. Continuing with some more gameplay technology changes, the old Flash UI that ran the MFDs or multifunction displays is finally going away in Alpha 4.0. They're reworking all of the MFDs to use building blocks UI and upgrading the HUD on a select number of ships for some better visibility. This hopefully will be a great opportunity for CIG to address some of the visibility issues with some HUDs which can become obscured in very bright environments or when flying directly at the sun. But it's also an opportunity to make some of these HUDs look incredible. We saw some glimpses of these new HUD elements that incorporate some manufacturer-specific stylings back when they were first concepted in ISC 2 years ago. They looked amazing, and I'm really excited to see these things implemented finally in-game. Another thing we're getting in 4.0 is the new RSI Zeus Mark II, a reimagining of the first commercially available ship equipped with a quantum drive and lore, and it's possibly one of the most anticipated multi-crew ships in recent years. While there are multiple variants planned for the Mark II, it seems that we're only going to get the essential variant for this initial release, equipped with the longer range exploration pack, lacking some creature comforts for some additional function and storage. Lastly, covering some final bases of miscellaneous changes and content additions coming in Alpha 4.0, we're getting some new fauna and enhancements to the character creator. The new fauna is going to be a cow-like creature that we got to see at CitizenCon in the background that started life on Terra, known for its novel way of carrying young along its underbelly. With the advent of some more passive creatures across the landscapes of Star Citizen, I'm really excited to see what the universe becomes when it's more fleshed out and we have more things to explore as the game's developed. As for the character creator, we're getting some more choices to give us more agency to create a character that better reflects ourselves, with a new ability to select piercings and some more hair options to choose from. And seeing as how CIG recently talked about adding more faces to the DNA mixer, we're probably going to see a bit more variety as well during this update. And this is only what they've revealed so far. We're still a ways out from that release, and I fully expect that we're going to see a few more additions and surprises make its way into that patch as we near closer to CitizenCon with whatever they're planning on revealing this year, which I personally expect to be Squadron 42, but now it's clearly going to be the release of Star Citizen's biggest patch ever. And if you feel like you've heard me say that before, I think that's a good thing, because we're finally getting patches that are bigger than the last, as opposed to going the opposite direction. So then with these uncharted territories and technologies coming in Star Citizen 4.0, I really can't wait to explore Pyro, fight fires on my ship, and just see what this new system has to offer. What are you most looking forward to then in Q3? And how has Invictus been for you, especially for those of you who are playing for free during the free fly? I'm really excited to see what the replication layer is able to do with additional server load, and I'm really looking forward to these upcoming server meshing tests as we finally get closer to when the game finally gets to a point where it feels like an MMO. But that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, you know what to do. Hope to see you in the next one.